Why is my not there? What did I forget? Oh, I did. It's not prepared, but I can wing it. Oh my god.
I was gonna
my
say,
screen is
what?
freaking
Is
out.
that a coyote or what?
Okay, now it's working. Okay.
Justice for all. Aldermember Starr, Plackty, Carey, Colson, Eller, Kerrigan, Mayor Barner. We have a quorum.
The first thing I need to do is I need to have a motion to amend the agenda. We have James Cranston going to do a presentation on the focus group. So I need somebody to motion to amend the agenda to allow.
I'll make a motion that we amend the agenda to include the focus group report.
I'll second. Have a vote. Motion and a second. All in favor? 6-0. Thank you very much. And moving on to the consent agenda, we will be approving the minutes of February 10th, 2025 regular session.
So moved.
Second. Motion is second, all in favor? 6-0. Mayor's report. Not a whole lot.
Consent.
We canceled the legislative conference in Columbia. I'm kind of bummed about that. But because of cold weather, I certainly understand for the legislation, a lot of the legislative folks weren't able to attend, so they canceled it. Nothing to report, other than there is a new episode of the Odessa Insight podcast up. This last one was Laura Sanders. We talked about the history of Odessa, and it's going to be a regular feature on the Odessa Insight podcast, discussing the history. With that, Alderman Black.
I would like to thank the city people and the police department for braving the cold that we had last week. It was brutal. Thank you all very much.
Alderman Call.
I'll second that, since you're getting out trying to help keep our streets clean and keep people safe.
I'll too echo that, and then no other. The only thing that's come to my attention this last week or so is really the trash all around town. I know winter's over, and now I wish, people could pick up their trash a little bit nice. And also, I went out to the recycle today, and people are just throwing their recycled stuff on the ground. I'm wondering if maybe we couldn't come up with some kind of sign and say, this is what recycle. A lot of it was trash. I picked up and just took home and put it in my trash, but remind people of the items that are
Acceptable.
When is that done?
I think it's once
It was empty today.
the
but there was
recycling
trash
though.
on the ground. I mean, there was recycling.
Yard waste is more than once a week, but I think recycling might be once a week.
So that's all I have. Yeah, put it in the,
If it's not there, take it home with you, bring it back.
I have no report.
Okay, so we have been working this morning to prepare and discuss for a workshop tonight, but just updates from the department heads. From the wastewater department, they have been working with outside contractors to do a few repairs that are outside of their scope of work. So the highest priority, one of those for them is Golf Street. We have a line that's down over there that we are trying to get repaired as soon as possible. So that's in the process and will be repaired shortly. They also are focusing on sewer jetting with the warm weather, just to make sure there's no backups or anything, now that things are kind of thawing out. They did experience a few different times that pipes froze at both of the wastewater plants, so, not only are our employees, making sure everyone's safe, making sure the streets are safe, but they're also trying to make sure our infrastructure continues to provide the services to our residents during these extreme cold temperatures. They're also working on doing a little pre-spring maintenance to make sure that everything's kind of cleaned up by the time trees start sprouting and things like that. And they also work to burn the brush. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but if you have truckloads or large amounts of brush, it can be brought to the Northwest Treatment Plant and dropped off there for free for Odessa residents anytime between, normal business operating hours. I think you have until at least like 3:30 in the afternoon. 8 to 2. So just so everyone's aware, that is a service available to our residents. So during the I Love Odessa Day, we always make that very clear and available to them. So they've been working to make sure all the brush is kind of cleaned up but not commercial. Thank you.
All that information's on our website.
For residents, yes. Everything's available on our website. We put that in our last month and this month's newsletter, but on March 15th, we will hold our annual I Love Odessa Day. We do that in tandem. The churches hold their I Love Odessa Day where they provide services to those in need, and then we just kind of tag along with that and provide dumpsters so people can do some spring cleaning and get rid of things that they no longer want. So, there is a major sewer and water line repair at the Methodist Church at 301 South First Street. So this week, the street will experience some traffic control road closures due to that repair. We will be posting on Facebook too about the I Love Odessa Day, so there'll be plenty of information out about that. We've also purchased extra dumpsters because it seems we always need extra dumpsters for that event, so we've got a few more for that. We still are continuously getting Pine Creek updates. We were not able to hit the target to get the dedication on this agenda, but it will be on the next agenda, along with the street signs that will be added to our traffic ordinance. So those can be enforced. Let's see. We also have a replat coming for Benning and Spring Street. There's currently, I think, 6 duplexes on the parcel. They're gonna replat and then add 3 more duplexes to that lot. We've been in communication with Odessa Mini Storage, also building in that area. They'll be putting in new storage facilities, and that is pretty much ready to go. I think it's gone through all of our approval processes at the city. And then lastly, Jones Warehouse is another one that Christy's been working diligently on. That is the advanced building. So they have made it through their IBTS approvals for plan review. We're just waiting on the response for their site plan review with our engineers on state, and then they'll be ready to move forward with the building permit. So they're getting very close. As for water and streets, we had some, again, potentially weather-related infrastructure issues at the plant last week, so those have all been resolved, as well as an electrical issue. So again, with the cold weather, we experienced things like that quite a bit. Those were all repaired and in a timely manner before we reached any type of state of urgency. So again, we're working on the community building bathrooms. As you can see, the front bathrooms are available, or front bathroom, ADA bathroom is available. We encountered some water damage when we took the drywall off and everything, so that project is taking a little bit longer than we anticipated, but once it's complete, it will be really nice for our renters. Streets will be working on some patchwork and street cuts this week, or as the weather permits. And then we did hire a new employee in the water department, so that title's a water operator. But again, like we've discussed, that position does both watering and streets. So we did hire a new person, so they'll be starting here shortly, contingent on their background and drug testing. For the electric department, they are working on some secondary discussions with Pine Creek as they continue to finalize their electric work over there. And they have a few other installations of new services in addition to Pine Creek. And then they're also working on one of the things that'll be in the CIP is the substation protections. So we're working on getting a good number for those so we can make sure we reduce the amount of outages we have in the substation and increase our reliability there. For PD, we have the Milo training next week in the basement of City Hall, so you guys are all welcome to join for that. Next weekend, Officer Cody Allen will help hold a memorial at the same location they did last year, the 1912 soccer fields. That'll be this upcoming Saturday. They're having a balloon release. We also have a focus group meeting tomorrow night and another focus group meeting March 4th, which is next Tuesday, where they'll be touring the Oak Grove facility. Lastly, one kind of big thing is we've been working really hard on understanding and documenting the code violations that are at the outlet mall today. We've successfully issued 917 violations at the outlet mall. So those are officially, it was 917 violations in over 40 different law ordinances. So we're beginning the conversations with the owner to see about the steps that they can take to make improvements towards those 917 violations. But those that aren't resolved will go over to municipal. For city clerk, she has quite a few trainings this week. She's working on the onboarding for the new water operator as well as a new reserve officer that we have. The finance director position is posted. She's keeping the special event calendar updated as well as those come in administratively through City Hall. So we have the addition of the farmer's market, the rodeo, and I believe Cody Allen balloon release will be on there as well. She's been working on a few records requests that have come in and researching ways to improve our dog permitting process. Lastly, she submitted she submitted the cyber liability paperwork to our insurance company. So that's something that we make sure we have each year to protect us from that perspective. And she's been working on health care for our employees to provide another great year of that benefit. And she's also been able to confirm that the fireworks show this year will be able to be on the hill again.
On the 3rd.
And if you remember last year when we brought that contract to you, we decided on July 3rd for the next 3 years. So this will be July 3rd, 2025 on the one of the things I will be working on this week is getting some information out to our residents for 2 items. One being the planning and zoning seats that we are aware of that are opening up in April. So we want to seek out to the public and see if anyone's interested in serving. So if you are aware of anyone who may want to serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, please encourage them to apply on our website under the Boards and Commissions section. And then the other thing that I plan on making sure all of our residents are aware of this week is the fact that Republic is changing their trash route, going back to 4 pickup days a week. So I know. So they tried it and it clearly didn't work. I looked at our information. It was March of last year that they switched it to 3 pickup days. So It's not exactly the same as it was before. We learned that with the mayor and his trash day. Just because when we had 4 days a week, if yours was on Thursday last time, that doesn't mean it's going to be on Thursday this time. But we do have the interactive map updated on our website. So you can go to our website. As soon as you open our website, there's an alert that says, click here to find your new trash day. It'll bring you to our interactive map where you can find your address and determine your new trash day.
I got a post on
So it's my understanding you would only get a postcard if you have an additional service through them. So if you have an additional can, no?
I don't.
I got it.
I've got fresh ones. But my day's different than they've been the last 2 times.
And I have an additional camera.
Okay, well, that's why we do plan on sending out robocalls on Thursday. So that's the best way to reach as many residents as possible is to call them up the robocall. So it's a little chaotic when we do that, but it's the best way to reach everyone. So those will go out on Thursday, and again, take a look at the website. The call will direct you to the website, so take a look at that website to better understand what you're doing. And that is starting on March 3rd. So 1 week. Yes, of course. The other thing I think I mentioned last time we met, Socket Fiber is coming to town to do a full citywide install. From my conversations that I've had with him, it's mostly underground as opposed to aerial. We have a meeting with our utilities and them tomorrow to express our concerns, express the issues that we had with Brightspeed, and hopefully get those corrected before they even get started with Socket. So Socket is a much smaller entity than Brightspeed was, a little less corporate. Brightspeed had subcontractors that were from Texas, and honestly, some of them were not even from the US, or I'm not sure, but these contractors are all local. Their number one subcontractor is from Oak Grove, and even potentially moving their business to Odessa. So that's positive, and that makes a big difference on day-to-day and customer interactions. So I do feel a little bit more confident in Socket's abilities. Another thing, last week's parks meeting was canceled due to lack of quorum and illness. So they are going to be meeting this Wednesday. One of the big things that they're meeting on is their budget and their fees and their pool contract. So all of those things will come, it's a little delayed. Those were supposed to come to us at this meeting, but because that was canceled, it'll come to us at the next meeting. And the planning and zoning meeting was also canceled last week because of the weather. We decided to not reschedule that and just to have that same planning and zoning workshop at the next scheduled meeting, the next month. Oh, and we have our bid opening for the sidewalks this Thursday. I think that's everything I have.
You did pretty good.
I just didn't clean up my notes. Okay, any questions? Thank you.
All right, you have any public comments tonight? Seeing none, we move on to old business, which there is none.
Thanks, Mitch.
And I like where we start, we have Josh, Chief Thompson. presenting the 2024 bond tender.
This is one of the highlights of my job. I enjoy doing this. Awesome summer. In just a minute, there's several people here from Austin's family that are going to witness this. I'll bring them up. I think he's got me beat on the height. He definitely has me beat with the hair. I enjoy his hair. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Again, this is truly one of my favorite parts of my job is to recognize exemplary employees. I'm sure that the other department directors would tell you the same thing. I enjoy doing positive recognitions, and Officer Austin Summit truly deserves this. the Bob Kinder Award. Austin will be the 5th recipient of this award. I created this award when we reactivated the Odessa Police Department so that I can share with you the good works that my staff is doing for this community. I want to tell you, the first time I met Austin, he wasn't even an Odessa police officer. He was a recruit in the academy, and he was doing ride-alongs with my staff, trying to figure out maybe where he wanted to work or relocate. And I think he was hooked after maybe the first ride-along. Yeah. He emailed me and called me multiple times to come back and do other ride-alongs with our department before we even thought about hiring Austin. I'll share with you that I recruited him right out of the academy in December of 2020. It was a COVID year, and he showed wonderful, gave wonderful highlights to my staff, really picked up things quickly. He is a graduate of a small town like Odessa, Centerview, Missouri, in Johnson County. Went to Crest Ridge High School, 2017 graduate. Both of his parents work in public safety, and they are here tonight. I think you said your mom did CPR training recently. So, yes, so it runs in Austin's family. And most of all, he's a compassionate young man. I want to share that. He cares about the community, and he certainly cares about the folks that live here. So with that being said, I do have a citation or a letter of commendation. I'm just going to read that so that you guys can see. Before I do that, maybe family, friends, come on up. That's okay, if you don't mind. Come on up. I told him he had a speech, but he didn't. You can see his family and friends are here to support him. So I'll go ahead and read this commendation. It is with great pride that I present Officer Austin Summit with the 2024 Bob Kinder Employee of the Year Award. Each year, full-time employees nominate a colleague for this award, and nominations are carefully assessed based on their service to the department, the city of Odessa, and the community. Officer Summit, who joined the police department right after completing the academy, has shown remarkable growth and an unwavering commitment to safeguarding our community. Officer Summit was quickly nominated by his fellow officers for the 2024 Bob Kinder Employee of the Year Award. His exceptional support within the department has made a lasting impact, as reflected in the feedback from his peers. Here are just a few comments that highlight Officer Summit's contributions. And these are comments from his peers, not mine. So I'll share that. Austin has built trust within the community. He organized a charity dodgeball game. He is proactive and consistently strives to improve. Austin motivates his colleagues. He uses technology and effective investigative techniques to solve crime. His performance is outstanding, and he is a valuable asset to Odessa. Officer Summit is a dedicated professional, known for his positive attitude and his commitment to the community. His outreach efforts include organizing a volunteer dodgeball event to strengthen relationships between the public, children, and law enforcement officers, and that these relationships have positive, meaningful impacts. His compassion and desire to help others shine in all that he does. The Odessa Police Department deeply appreciates Officer Summit's hard work and continued commitment to the Odessa community, the city of Odessa, and to the Odessa Police Department. City Administrator Shauna Davis and Mayor Brian Barner and I are extremely proud of Officer Summit's accomplishments in 2024. We sincerely thank him for his service and congratulate him on this well-deserved recognition. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, correct. Congratulations. Next up, we have the presentation by James Cranbrook, presents about the police facility focus group.
Hello, everyone. So the committee, we've met, I think, a couple times since I was here last. Feel like we're starting to make some actual progress compared to where we have been, as things are kind of starting to come together. One of the big things that we've kind of heard overall is that the public and everybody doesn't think we need a facility as big as what has been previously designed. So we've taken that to heart. In our last meeting, we kind of went through some of the drawings and blueprints that we've had and have started to kind of reduce the facility in size. For example, in the other drawings, we had a courtroom designed to hold 200 people. It's going to be a multi-purpose room, like a safe room, storm shelter, courtroom, etc. We decided to kind of eliminate that as a whole and reduce that to kind of a multi-purpose room, taking out the court system. And the size of it will go from 200 people capacity, and what we talked about was reducing it to 50, so about a fourth of the size there. Reducing several other offices and other rooms throughout the facility. Taking out the animal control side of it as well. We want to, within conversation, we've talked about putting just a temporary holding facility in for a single canine essentially. Sedalia PD had something similar to that we all kind of liked. And that serves a couple purposes. One, if one of the Odessa PD canines needs temporary shelter, they can keep it there. Or if they happen to come across a stray, they can do that as well. And with this in mind, down the road or at some point, building a separate facility for animal control. We believe it would be cheaper to build its own separate facility than to include it in this facility at this point in time. So that's why we're looking at that. Some of the other things that we've talked about, keeping in the facility is like an officer workspace, detective area, server room, locker room, that kind of thing. Tomorrow, we're going to hear a presentation as well, kind of a bare bones facility, and which does away with a lot of those things that we talked about. I'm not quite on board with that yet, but it does reduce the size in half, essentially, from what we had. Our biggest concern is officer safety, safety of the public, safety of the folks that's been arrested and coming in. So we want to make sure we do meet those needs no matter what. I'll give you one example that I actually experienced about 3:30 Sunday morning through my regular job. One of the things within our committee that was in the original drawings was kind of a wellness center, kind of a gym for the officers to work out at. It's been kind of a contentious subject within our group, mainly me, trying to fight for that because I see the purpose and need of it. To where a lot of members of our committee were like, oh, we'll just get them a gym membership and call it good. So here's a scenario to keep in mind that I experienced Sunday morning. Just west of here, at a local restaurant, disturbance came out of 15 people fighting. At the conclusion of that, there was a husband and wife who were not very happy with the police. It turns out, I believe one of them actually both were Odessa resident. He gets arrested for the disturbance, gets transported to jail. She creates a disturbance while she's waiting for him to be released after being booked. She ends up getting arrested after he's released. She gets released. Who wants to go work out with them that following morning if you're a police officer? If you just have a gym membership. So it's scenarios like that where I see the purpose of the need for having a small gym or at least a space for that. One thing to keep in mind is there's a lot of grant funding out there for the equipment for that type of facility. We just need that space. Doesn't have to be real big, but trying to have some space for that. For officer safety, just off duty as well. One of the reasons that I like not living in the town that I work is I'm not running into the people that I arrest. It keeps me safe, it keeps my family safe. I can't tell you how many death threats I've had of people threatening to harm my wife or my family. So the more that we can keep them separated and from that issue being an issue, is better off. One thing that came up in our last meeting I thought was really cool, a cool idea anyway, but I found out since we can't do it because of Missouri building codes. The idea of a 3D printed building. I looked into it myself and kind of looked at some of the stuff online. It's really pretty fascinating what they can do, and the cost of it's a lot cheaper than traditional construction. Unfortunately, it won't work for us because of the building codes. But it had to be a possibility if we're going to try to go down that path, maybe at least explore getting some information there as well. Something just to kind of, if you want to look at another example of a brand new police station that was recently built, the city of Chillicothe just opened their brand new police station. I think it's 11,600 square feet. Very similar in size to what was the original drawing here. And I believe the cost came in at 7.6 million. We're going to be well below that, but it looks like a really nice facility. If you guys want to take a look at it, or just for comparison. And then Shauna mentioned the Odessa or the Oak Grove PD tour. I believe it's going to be March the 3rd.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is.
Tuesday's the 4th.
Okay, it is.
Yeah. it's
Okay.
Tuesday.
So I stand corrected. But some of the members of the committee did express interest in going to tour of the show, so we're going to do that as well. We do have a meeting tomorrow night. Should be kind of interesting. If you guys want to come, if you have time, we'll have another presenter that's very familiar with the construction side. It's going to go over a lot of pros and cons between new construction, remodel, things like that. In our last meeting, kind of the consensus of the group that we had, it looked like everybody was kind of leaning towards new construction. Keep in mind though, we didn't have a full committee there. I'd say probably 60% of the committee, something like that. So we'll see where we're at tomorrow night. So kind of interesting. So, for the most part, that's what I've got. Any questions from you guys? Yeah.
The multi-purpose room,
Mhm.
you said it's gonna go 250.
Yeah.
That's where they can have court and all
So we
that.
won't have court, it won't be big enough to hold court all the time. So that multi-purpose room will allow the department to hold like officer trainings in there. Too, if they want to do a citizen police academy, it'll be big enough for that. Maybe some small community meetings as well, but it will not be big enough to hold court. And
Are
That's,
you not planning for the police department to go?
I would love to, but
Okay, I'm asking them.
yeah, the committee is very concerned about costs. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're trying to find that happy medium. One thing that we're looking at as well, what was proposed in the past was a 1/2 cent public safety sales tax, potentially reducing that to a 3/8 cent sales tax. to at least get our base building in there and up and functioning. So we'll see on that. A couple of members of the committee expressed concern about the original proposal of a 40-year plan. I understand that, as far as a 40-year note on it. So we're gonna see some examples of what a 20, 25, and 30-year note would do, with the 3/8 cent sales tax versus a 1/4 cent and so on. I would love to have the original drawing, but obviously that's not gonna work for our community, for approval. But we do need that public safety sales tax to do anything, to be able to fund it. The city has a lot of needs right now and a lot of things tugging at that purse string, as you guys are well aware of. So if we can get the public safety sales tax, at least we can get something done and allow Adam's group to be able to proceed with it. Any other questions? You guys are always so quiet.
You're doing a great job. Thank you
Well,
very
I
much
appreciate it.
for being
So,
part of that. I know that takes time, so.
yeah, I'm ready to get my days off back.
Yeah.
Just to kind of add, just kind of talking about, our IPD officer, end of this week will be the 1-year anniversary of his death. So I'm gonna keep that in mind, keep his family and close friends in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you, guys.
All right, moving right along, we will go to bill number 2025-05. Authorizing the mayor to approve the amendment to the real estate purchase agreement between the city of Odessa and the National Development Group, LLC, for the year. Motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve bill number 2025-05.
Have a motion and a
Who
second.
who seconded? Colin? Okay.
6-0. We will have discussion.
Discussion.
Yep, discussion.
I have a couple of comments and/or questions. In looking at the reading of the second amendment, it is, at least it's come up into my mind that the modification of paragraph 9, developer failure to construct project, subsection A, paragraph 9A, it shall read to include a section of the letter of credit. I have no problem with that. Okay. Modification of paragraph 9, developer failure to construct the project, subsection B, paragraph 9B, is now reading somewhat like it did before. And the reading of my recap shows that a default by the developer is going to prompt a potential, and this is the area that I want to discuss, that if, and I'm reading the last 5 lines of paragraph 5 of this change. In the event the city elects this remedy upon a developer default, after the issuance of a building permit or demolition permit and the beginning of constructions for the project improvements, the city and the developer shall agree on an appraiser and have the property appraised. And the city shall pay fair market value to the developer as consideration for the reconveyance of the property to the city. This is in reference to a quick claim deed that is going to be executed and held in escrow. My limited interpretation of this gives me a sense of potential liability to the city. Because we're gonna take $100,000 and our developer is going to spend money. And there then could be a possible default that occurs over the next X amount of months or over the X number of years. And if he does go into default, then we've agreed with that wording that we're going to come up with an appraiser that's acceptable to the developer and then ourselves. They're going to appraise the value of that property. And technically, the way I read this is the city shall pay fair market value to the developer as consideration for the reconveyance of the property to the city. I need in my own mind that changed for somebody to explain to me that the city is not going to have to come up with that dollar. And if we want to, in effect, make this where we have the first right of refusal, then I don't have a problem with it. I think the developers are doing the city a wonderful improvement that I hope and I think most citizens of Odessa would like to see occur. I just have a problem in possibly exposing the city to a dollar deficiency that we're not going to be able to come up with.
So maybe this is something for the attorneys, but I think the prominent words in here is in the event the city elects to remedy
Elects this remedy.
this remedy. So doesn't mean that we're held to the fire to do this, but at the time, the city can elect to do this, meaning that the board of aldermen at the time, if this should happen, we have the option.
So if we didn't want to see it go to the hands of a different developer or whatever, or just sit vacant, we could opt to take it back at the appraised value.
But we're not.
We're not obligated to, we don't have to.
Is there a possibility that we can make that a part of this paragraph?
So
That
to
it is
clar-
an option that the city has,
To clarify it,
my interpretation, that it is a requirement. that the
It
city
says
has.
here though, in the event the city elects this remedy. So does that take care of it?
Well, I think that if it still creates a doubt in your mind, then it needs to probably be polished up a little bit. We can make that more clear. But my understanding of it is that we have the option at that point to assess the fair market value of the property, which one would think the fair market value would start at the undeveloped property price and then increase roughly by the amount of money that the developer has put into it. But there are eventualities where, given how markets may or may not happen, where it would be a number we wouldn't be comfortable with and we could just walk away. But it does say we can elect that remedy, and if we do, we shall agree on the appraisal. There's no problem with adjusting that language to make it more clear. I'm always in favor of making things more clear because we only deal with what happens if this contract goes horribly wrong. We all assume it's going to go perfectly well, but we want it to be very clear in the event that something goes in a way we don't want to happen, so that we're clear on how to fix it. I would have no problem at all changing that language up a little bit to make it more clear. If you want to do that, I don't know what our timeline is with the developer.
we had chosen March 6th for the closing date, but we'd have to move that back. So adjust the amendment to move the closing date back so it could be after the next meeting, March 10th.
Do we know if the developer's going to have a real problem with that? I mean, I just
I wouldn't think so, no.
Okay.
So my issue is, I can't really change that to change the fact that he's giving us $100,000 for today, which in my understanding, it would appraise for probably 5 times that much today. So he's getting a huge discount on it. And if he were to default tomorrow, which if he were smart, he would default tomorrow and take a $400,000 to $1 million cash in pocket because we can't afford more than $100,000 to buy
But-
it back.
If he defaults before a building license has been issued, then both things just revert back. The dollar and the parcel just revert back up until the point that he's issued a building permit. So he couldn't default tomorrow and make a profit. It would
I
only,
did not see that in the contract.
180. We've got the equipment.
so that's what's been added to 9B. That's what's changed, is that the 100,000 reverts back up until a building permit has been issued.
And then he has a letter of credit. He cannot get a building permit until he has that letter.
So that clause protects the city up until we know for a fact that he has that letter of credit. Because he has to have the letter of credit before he can issue a building permit.
Okay, so let's say he does that, he gets the letter of credit, he gets the building permit, and then defaults. He's
Yeah.
still money way ahead.
It only protects the city up until the building permit.
I still think that the city comes out on the wrong end on this. The only way the city comes out ahead on this is if he finishes it 100%. And with the rising costs of material and everything out there, he's already stated that he has to add another 30 doors, which we're not even sure the zone is gonna actually approve that. And he's already said, I'm gonna come back for variances to get around building codes, to make sure I can park, to make sure I can do things.
He said that he would get a variance if needed, because that's the process that you have to go through. He's not saying he's for sure going to get a variance, because he doesn't know yet. That part has not been engineered.
Correct. I don't know, I have a lot of doubts with our current climate that this is actually gonna get pulled off. I think it's a great asset, and I think in different circumstances, I'd be all for this, but I just don't see it happening. And I see the city losing out on this.
Shauna, you kind of, I had a similar question, and you kind of explained to me, which made a little more, it clarified a bit with the stipulations of this contract.
Yeah, so I had proposed to, during the renegotiations, my thought was the reappraisal was the concern for the board. So if we took the reappraisal off of our plate, and if a default were to happen, we wrote in there that the developer has to then sell the property. So then when he sells it, he makes back his improvements and gets the market value and all of that. And then we still come out on top because there's a clause in there that says that the next developer still has to follow the same rules. But his concern with putting that in there was the fact that because of the rigid stipulations that have been put on this contract, that another developer, it's very unlikely that another developer would be willing to agree to these same terms. Is that what you're asking about? And I think if we have the same, if we issue the reappraisal clause, right, the reconveyance, and we say, okay, we're gonna get it reappraised and we're gonna purchase it back, then what do we do with it at that point? Because if he can't sell it, how are we gonna sell it?
He can't sell it because of the clause.
So are we going to take the
No, I'm
cons-
saying if we get it back tomorrow, we can sell it as is, or do whatever we want. If we force it.
It's been sitting there since 2009.
Yeah, it's been there.
So I'm not sure the process the original board went through. He said he had to give a proposal of what he was gonna do with the building to revitalize it, not bulldoze it. If we just said you can buy the property and everything, bulldoze it, do whatever you want, I would think you'd have more people coming to build on that. If we chose to sell it. But I wasn't part of that previously. I don't know what.
Well,
proposal was
I've
out
been
there.
up in zoning for years, but I've got names that I'm not from this.
I'm not either.
And so,
And I see the historic value that the building does have, but the people here, I know, I've met people who've gone to school there, so.
I don't know if the developer would go for this, but if the concern is, and it's a valid concern, that if we try and buy it back from him, he wants $1 million for it, that's, I think I would suggest that we cap any repayment cost to the city at the initial investment, what he paid us, plus the value of the improvements he puts into it. So, and then we should be able to come up with some language that does that, where say he dumps $100,000 into a building that we paid $100,000 for, and then we have to take it back for whatever reason, and we only owe the amount of money that only the added value that he's put on top of that. Would that go some ways to addressing your concerns if we could negotiate something like that with the developer? Just some sort of a cap that keeps him from reaping a windfall by strategically defaulting.
I don't think you'd go for it, probably.
Well, we can give it a shot. If we're going to be redoing some other things too, if you don't object, we can propose that language to him or something like that and see what he wants to do.
From
with it.
my conversations with him, his biggest concern is that he will put money into it that he'll never get back if we do the 100,000 wash. So what Jeff is saying is if we agree to paying him for those improvements, then he's getting back his investment of what he's put into it.
But we don't have to do that. That is just an option, that if something happens, we can look at that, or he can resell it to some other developer that still has to follow the sales agreement, all these things that needs to be put in there. And we're giving him, all we're doing today is giving him, we're gonna say, you got 180 days to come up with this line of credit to see if you can get this accomplished. I feel like we've just got enough parameters in here. He's really worked with us. No other developer would come. He doesn't have to come to the board and tell us that these things, that he has done that, and he's been an Odessa person. I think he's trying the hardest that he can to make this work out, and look at the benefit we have of adding all these additional units here to Odessa. At the time that we talked about selling this, it was going to cost us $400,000 to $500,000 to demolish the building. And so this was a better way for us to try to work with him to make this happen, keep the building happen. Shauna and I have talked in our insurance company and saying, this building has been here for many years, since 2009. It is now a blighted danger. I mean, if we don't agree to this and let him try to get this accomplished, we're gonna have this building back, and we're gonna have to come up with some money, and it will have to be. So it will cost the city. Is that the correct figure, Shauna? We're kind of thinking the demo wasn't cheap.
Yeah, I don't have an exact amount,
Yeah,
but
I mean, that was our discussion as to why we wanted to work with Adam on this. It's because it was gonna cost us a lot more to demo the property. And I think even Bob had talked to a local realtor and said if we demoed it, then we might be able to section it off and the city might be able to sell, But I don't think at that point we would even recoup what it would cost to demo the building, or we'd be pretty close to that. So. Right, I'm just saying, why don't we let him try to see if he can get this letter of credit, and he's worked on this since 2020. So,
He's put a lot of money in.
Yes.
So I truly believe that he is going to try to do what he said he's gonna do.
and they're businessmen, they're not gonna go in business
Yeah.
to lose money. So, if we, and Bob's concerned with that paragraph, and we can make that more clear, that we don't have to pay an exorbitant price to take this back, but we have an option to, that's why we put it in there, kind of first right of refusal thing, if something would happen. But that still holds we're still holding pretty tight to all these things that we're just selling a piece of property to somebody that's going to do something with that land.
My thinking is that I would like to have the option of not having to repurchase this at the new appraised value. If he will go along with that. I have no difficulty.
You mean what he's got, what he purchased it for and what he's.
Again, the way it's worded, we're gonna have to have it appraised if we defaults after the building permit is issued. Once that new price and appraisal is in place, what this tells me is the city has to buy it.
We have an option.
And again, that's why I'm asking Jeff to incorporate.
Currently, the way it's worded, if he defaults, we have two options, should we want to pursue it. One is to go to credit, and go to legal, we get nothing out of that. The second one, if we want to get it back, we buy it back for the appraised value of that money. So we can exercise either option or not, and just walk away and he can do whatever he wants. That's just what we have a legal recourse to do. We're not forced into either of them, but we can't do anything outside of either of those the way it's written. My concern is with the changing times, I don't think he's gonna be able to complete it. And I've had a sidebar with him as well, and he also shared his own doubts with me about how he's within his legal rights to turn around and sell it already and let somebody else do it, and how he's within his legal rights to do it, which he is according to his contract. I just don't think it's actually gonna happen. And we're gonna get even more ticked off people in the city because we made a bad real estate deal, hoping that it was gonna work out. And I just don't think it's gonna happen. As much as everybody has positive intentions or whatnot, I just don't see it happen, no matter how we work this project. Because he already knows he's gotta add a bunch of doors to even make money. I've run the numbers on it. And he's gotta do a lot. And that's why he has to have $100,000. I take this deal in a heartbeat, around, flip it, and fall. And he has every legal right to do it.
But from what I'm understanding, and I might be wrong, if he did that, the next people have to.
That's why.
If he sold it, they have to, yes, it is written in there that they have to comply with what we stipulated in the sales agreement.
Paragraph 24, a covenant running with the land. Provisions of the agreement will run with it if he was to sell it.
And if we keep it, we're gonna have to do something with it.
Correct. And that is a risk that we have to figure out whether we're going to.
I mean, it's
You're right.
becoming, it's like the reservoir, it's becoming like, we're gonna have to do something with that
Right.
building. Or we can let him try to.
So if he sold it and made money, then the other people would have to spend money to get it.
So I don't know.
Unless they come back and renegotiate. again,
Buyers
because
standing in
it's
line
also
for that.
No, there's
Yeah.
no buyer
It's not
standing
like
in
they're
line.
knocking down the door to get that.
And like I said, I don't know what we did before, but to try to promote it. I don't know.
Well, I've been on the board 7 years. I tried to sell it for 7 years.
This is
And
the only,
he-
this is the
only
only,
offer we've had.
yeah, it's been since 2009.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. I've
Oh,
been
you
on
know.
the board that's been used. And it's,
During your time.
yeah, during my time. So I'm willing to let him try. I mean, I'm willing to let him try. That's my bottom line.
Any further discussion?
Does
So we
the,
need a motion to postpone, or we want to-
yeah,
or we can take a vote?
yeah, that's, I'm not sure where consensus is.
I think this is clarified enough in the personal. It says right there, what else would you put there besides what it says? I mean, it says it right there. In the event the city elects this remedy upon a developer default. How else are you gonna say it?
Well, I can always be more wordy. There's nothing you can give me that I can't make some change to, but I think it's, from a legal standpoint, I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
We could cover all the bases, double check it. I mean, if that was the issue, but I'm satisfied that what I'm hearing here about that issue is covered in what we've already got there. But I also don't have a problem if you guys vote to do it, to polish that language and make it a little less jargon, a little more clear layman type language. I'm happy to do that as well.
I don't think changing that language is going to change the intent of that paragraph.
Not at
I
all.
agree.
Okay, so there is no motion, no need for a motion to postpone.
That's where I feel.
What is your recommendation? What would be your recommendation?
Well, you guys make the final decision. Obviously, we can give you the law on the issue. I think that the contract is, the levels of risk, I think, are roughly similar on either side for the reasons that have been brought up here. This is not a hot property, and we really don't know what's going to happen to the real estate market. I could construct a scenario in my head where the value goes way up or the value goes way down. So there is risk involved for both parties. I also have, wonder about things like the letter of credit. We're hearing from our other clients that letters of credit are much more difficult to come by. There are alternatives to that, like completion bonds, performance bonds, things like that, which might be easier to obtain. I am worried that if we pass this, I would not be surprised if we get closer to a date for letter of credit, if there might be a need to explore something besides that would still get the city its full measure back in the event of default. And that is no reflection on the developer or any developer, even just things like getting somebody to put up a letter of credit for the demolition of a building on a dangerous building thing is getting more and more difficult these days. And that's when somebody's got $15,000 in the bank and can just encumber it. Banks are less likely to do that these days than they once were. But in terms of legal exposure for the city or the city being on the bad side of a deal, I don't see that in this one. But it is not for me to speak on the policy grounds that you guys need to make your decisions on. From a legal standpoint, however, I don't have any problems with this agreement as it's written right now.
And we do have the added protection now in this version with up until he provides that letter of credit, everything will revert back if it's not provided. Without an appraisal, with no appraisal. Yes.
Yeah, I will say, my viewpoint, tell that all the drivers. I never make business decisions based on emotion. With that, what you have to look through is the character of the conviction of the development of people that are involved in the transaction. And no one has got to do nothing noble or a high degree of character. He says he's gonna do something, he's gonna try his damnedest to get it done. He has a passion and affinity for that 1912 building. The building itself is important. He's got deep-rooted connections to whatever piece. So, take that as you want.
And he's a lifelong resident.
He's a lifelong resident, he has a name in this town, he's been good to this town, he's a fantastic mayor. The pattern, part of my mayorship, the way I try to do things, based off of him. And his character, and how he can vote, and how he conducts himself in business and out of business. So I'm a fan of the man, and the man speaks for the development. He is a developer. And that's just my opinion. And I'm sure you guys have.
He's been involved with Joe Rimley, has renovated several of the buildings in our downtown corridors here.
Again, from my perspective, this is based on emotions, based on past performance.
Yeah.
And what I've witnessed from the development. Okay? So with that, are we in agreement to move forward with the? Okay. Bill number 2025-05, on introduction and reading of bill number 2025-05, authorizing the mayor to approve the amendment to the real estate purchase agreement between the city of Odessa and 1912.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading and approve the bill as an ordinance of bill number 2025-05, 1912 building real estate agreement amendment. Second reading.
Motion and second. Roll call.
Alderman Plackty,
Yes.
Carey,
No.
Holson, Eller,
Yes.
Kerrigan,
No.
Starr. Okay, that is passed 4-2. Given ordinance number 3145.
Bill number 2025 Bill number 2025 amending section 4, article 3, division 3, section 6 intoxicating liquor on city property and city of Odessa. First reading.
I'll make a motion for the first reading of bill number 2025. Or first and second reading.
We have a first and a second, Clarke, all in favor? Take here, discussion.
This is just changing the community building.
Donna, was the other- any questions?
Just a community building. So, okay, so let me find it.
And the thumbnails on the left, thumbnails.
The items that can be outside, can't sell it.
Yeah, so previously, the language said that the city administrator had the authority to approve liquor on city properties. That was prior to our special events ordinance. Then we approved the special events ordinance that we were attempting to stipulate that anything liquor-related special event-wise had to come to the Board of Aldermen. When we did that, we changed the overall liquor on city properties ordinance to restrict it to no liquor on any city properties without Board of Aldermen approval. That obviously doesn't work with our community building rental program, where this building's rented out, a couple times a weekend to residents, non-residents, community organizations, community fundraising, things like that. So we wanted to shore this up, clean this up a little bit so we could continue our rental program. And we worked with the local ATF division to make sure that we were not over-regulating or under-regulating liquor on public spaces. So what this does is that it keeps the same clause that liquor is prohibited on city premises, with the exception of the community building. And then it still keeps the same clause in there that liquor can be permitted on those other city premises with the Board of Aldermen's approval. And then as for the community building itself, it says that alcohol beverages may be possessed and consumed within the community building, subject to the following conditions. No alcoholic beverages shall be sold on the premises. No admission or cover charges shall be allowed when alcoholic beverages are served, which is a state regulation. Alcoholic beverages shall not be taken outside of the community building, and all applicable state liquor license laws must be followed. Any necessary permits or licenses for the service of alcohol must be obtained prior to any event where alcohol is served. And then it goes into the fact that the Board of Aldermen can waive on other city premises for special events. And then anyone found in violation of the ordinance shall be subject to penalties as prescribed by the municipal code. So it's just adding those 4 regulations for liquor at the community building. One of the items too that is not dictated in the ordinance itself, but what we do have available to renters is a $100 additional insurance policy that all of our renters can opt into if they see fit when renting this facility. But we did not make it a requirement by ordinance.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to the second. Introduction and reading of bill number 2025-06, amending section 4, article 3, division 3, section 6-56. Intoxicating liquor on city-owned property in the city of Odessa, code of ordinance.
I make a motion to approve the second reading and approve the bill as an ordinance. This is bill number 2025-06, amending section 4, article 3, division 3, section 6.56, in reference to intoxicating liquor on city-owned property.
Need a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Aldermember Paulson. Eller.
Yes.
Kerrigan.
Yes.
Starr. Plackty.
Yes.
Carey.
Yes.
Motion carried, given ordinance number 3146.
make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number 2025-03, Juneteenth Day Municipal Holiday.
All in favor? Oh, second. Call it second.
I'll catch you.
All in favor, 6 0. All right, now we have the presentation of the proposed, I'm sorry. Proposed resolution number 2025-04, authorizing the mayor to approve the engagement letter for professional services agreement for contract service with
What? I'm sorry. Yeah, Bergen KDV. Oh, yeah.
That's what I.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, these were the only, this is the only company that bid on the RFP. We've struggled, we've called numerous companies and a lot of them will not, they will not bid because our previous company has not complied with this year's audit. So they're not going to bid on an audit that they can't see the previous year's numbers. So we're struggling to find, I mean, this is the third year in a row that we don't have audit numbers from Dana Cole. So we're going to continue to face the same problem where we can't find a new company or no new companies are willing to provide services to us because we don't have our previous year's audit. So I think that we've worked these numbers into the budget so far. They're all built in, including with the amount that is still yet to be paid to Dana Cole. So I think that they're a higher quality company. They come recommended. We did reference checks that all came out very well, very high regard. And I think we're going to pay a higher rate for a higher quality.
Is there an initial fee for when they first, the first year that they do us and because they don't have the previous audit?
No,
They don't care about that?
because it was an RFP, whatever they put in that RFP is the prices that we would pay for the next, I think might have even been 4 years in the RFP. Yeah. And we're not entering into a 4-year agreement. We're entering, they bid for 4 years, but each year we have an opportunity whenever they bring us their engagement letter and agreement, then we would have in that agreement list a 90-day termination clause. So we're not committed to them for the next 4 years. We could terminate the contract before then. But the prices are locked in because we did an RFP. Yes. Yeah, 100%. Yes, it is in there. Yep.
Make motion to approve resolution 2025-04, Bergen KDV to audit business.
I'll second.
I'll do this from my phone.
Okay, so like I said in our budget workshop, we kind of presented, we kind of went over some of the CIP items in our workshop prior to the meeting. We are going to go over the rest of those CIP items on our March 10th budget workshop meeting. And in our agenda packet for tonight, I have the assumptions that are used in our proposed budget, our budget that will be proposed. I have personnel assumptions and revenue assumptions. So we can go over those items. And then at our next workshop, we will wrap up the remaining items, which would just be the transportation fund, the remaining CIP we didn't hit tonight, and the capital improvement fund. So some of these a lot of these numbers are, we're still kind of chasing some numbers. I mean, just for example, with the transportation fund, we're opening bids and selecting the contractor on this Thursday. So once we get those bids in, we'll know for sure, and that I can plug those into the transportation fund, but our budget calendar is kind of on kibosh a little bit this year. So I just want to get these presented to you, and then at our March 10th meeting, I'll present you with a budget in its entirety. So one of the things, you know, we talked about in our workshop are the budget constraints that we're facing when it comes to revenue and increased costs of operations. Last year, we provided a 6% salary increase to our employees. And from a few conversations that I've had with some elected officials, this was a high priority. Sorry. This was a high priority item and something we wanted to preserve so we can continue to place that value in retaining our employees. So I still do have a 6% increase in. One of the things I've provided in the past when we've had these discussions was a cost comparison to show you, you know, if we scale back to 4% or 5%, the actual wage impact that has on each fund is extremely minimal. And it makes it a really hard justification to reduce the 6% impact any further because of the minimal operational, you know, wiggle room it gives us back. So that's why I personally wanted to keep 6% in, and I know I've heard that from others on the board as well. So that's what I have in there right now. It's definitely addressable if that's the direction you guys give me. Another item in there, in our personnel assumptions is FICA, 7.65%. That's a pretty standard number that we keep in there. Missouri loggers did adjust in March, so it's 8.7 for general employees and 8.4% for police employees. So that's of their salary. The city pays into the loggers program for the employee as a benefit. One of the other items, we typically put 5%, a 5% increase in for health, dental, and vision. And the last few years, we've been really lucky in the sense that NPR's had the ability to keep those flat for us, and our insurance premiums have not increased. We don't have that information yet, and we won't have it until the budget is really pieced together. But we are losing, not losing confidence, but where you just, we've been warned, if you will, from NPR that the continuous 0% increase for health, dental, and vision is less and less likely for this upcoming year. So we do anticipate we plug 6% in instead of our normal 5%. And that's what we'll have to go with in the budget. Life and disability, those are standard rates that we plug in each year. So haven't gone up and typically don't go up. Those are also benefits for our employees. One of the big things that we changed last year was for the HSA health benefit premium. If you're enrolled in that plan, the city will pay your deductible amount. So that number was $1,500 that the city was paying for if you were single, if you were, it was the individual and their spouse, individual and independent, or family. It was $1,500 across the board. Last year, NPR, because of federal regulations, had to increase that to $1,600. And Mallory and I were doing some analysis of our health benefits and how they were dispersed across our employees. And we noticed that a large percentage of our health plans were the I&O plan, which is the most expensive plan, full coverage. For those that maybe we didn't think that was the best fit for them, and maybe they just needed a little bit more information on the plan. So what we did was we incentivized that program ever so slightly by, if it's employee only, it's $1,600, but if it's family or more, then you've got the full deductible amount. The city would pay the deductible, and that deductible was $3,200. That rate is going, we're keeping that same process or same programming where if you have family, spouse, or children, you still get the family deductible amount. We do think that's a great benefit for our employees, for the city to cover that for the low premium plan only. So it balanced things out a little bit. It was a cost to the city, but it brought, we had a lot of employees that switched over from that highest premium option to the lowest premium option because of this benefit. So that worked out very well for us. It was very successful. Because NPR is upgrading that again, so we're trying to keep up to speed with NPR on those deductible amounts. So it's going from $1,600 to $1,650 and $3,200 to $3,300 for the city to cover the deductible.
Question on that, so if they stayed at the higher plan, did they not get the full 3,200?
No, you only get the HSA for that. We have 3 different plans, and the HSA is only one of those 3 plans. So employees went from the most expensive INO, everything's covered plan, and switched over to the cheapest, which is the HSA, where the city pays your deductible. The next slide, we just show a comparison these are the general fund departments, so administration, police, municipal court, streets, and community development, showing you what was budgeted last year versus this year and the difference between the two. The only salary change that we are making in this fiscal year is the building maintenance position. So as you know, we added the building maintenance. I think technically we added the building maintenance 2 years ago and then didn't fill it for 1 year. And then we filled it last year. Then Darren took Ben away from us. So now that position is vacant.
And now Ben's back.
Exactly. So that position is vacant. Originally, how we had that budgeted was that building maintenance position, the intent was that they would provide building maintenance to all the different departments: electric, wastewater, water, police, general fund, administration. So it was split by 4 different funds, the position itself was. What the only fund that didn't cover the building maintenance position was the Parks Department. So the change that we're making this year is that now the Parks Department is going to pay into that salary, and this position is going to be full-time position that reports to Joey, the Parks Maintenance Supervisor. Yes, so it helps a lot. Previously, the position was reporting to me. That didn't make a lot of sense at all whatsoever. It was very difficult to manage that person's time. Joey has the resources, the tools, the ability, and kind of the same scope of work. So it makes a lot of sense for Joey to supervise this position. So with just a very minimal, it lowers the cost ever so slightly for the other funds, and then we're working with the Parks Board to kind of balance things out to make that affordable for us. In Parks Maintenance, you have to realize too, Joey's really a department of 1 for most of the year, and he has part-time employees that are a lot of times college kids, or they seasonally work 30 hours a week. He has a lot to do with very little staff. So it gives him an extra person during the non-summer months. Obviously, this person can help with some of Joey's tasks, but they'll have their own citywide maintenance things that they're doing during the heat of the summer and the warmer months. But year round, Joey will have help. So it's a win-win for everyone. One of the other items that we discussed and we wanted to prioritize in this budget was splitting the animal control position and the community or the code enforcement position. So we had every intent to do that, and we learned very, very quickly that the general fund could not support that position and that addition of that position. So we were not able to split the 2. It will continue to be a shared position at this time. And then I think that was it for personnel in the general fund. And then lastly, there are no other additional positions. The next slide, we have electric, water, wastewater, and then the Parks Department shows you the comparison from last year's budget to this year's budget. Nothing out of the norm by any means here. That would really just be the assumptions that were on that first slide, the 6%, retention loggers, and the premium cost is what you're seeing in these numbers. She had, I worked up, Amy and I both worked on this, so, reporting on her sides, but she did include that clause in there at the bottom that, for Parks Department, minimum wage did increase, so we're trying our best to account for that wage increase from $12.30 to $13.70. And minimum wage will continue to increase year after year. Next, this was one of your requests, Colin, for the board salary comparison. So this just shows you, it has Odessa at the top, how much the mayor makes by population, and how much the aldermen make monthly, and then it has an annual amount for both. And it's comparing to Richmond, Higginsville, Knob Noster, Oak Grove, Green Valley, and Concordia, all somewhat similarly populated cities. So I know this was kind of a discussion item. If we want to go ahead and discuss it, I'm comfortable with that. So I have a direction to go.
It's on the agenda.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on the salary comparison?
Personally, it's right in line with what other cities are doing. What is, I mean, is there any advantage to the meeting price rather than, a monthly? What- I mean, to me, it was about the same when the other one was.
Yeah, I mean, those that have a meeting, like Knob Noster, Oak Grove, Green Valley, Concordia, they're all around.
So do they get paid right away after the meeting or?
And they might get paid bi-weekly instead of
Yeah.
monthly. That would probably,
I mean, that's just gonna create.
I'm assuming they get.
Do what?
Oh, I know, right?
So they would do the
Yeah,
meeting
probably
without
not,
getting
no.
paid.
So if you're sick, you don't get paid.
True.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you don't show up. That makes sense. It's like, why would you get paid for that? It's 105.
We're not there yet, we're stuck on 99. Let's go.
We are working with the CDWG to upgrade our laptops.
Here we go. You got it. Over. We got it.
We are? I didn't know that.
Not sure how I got to a different number. It must have included, for Oak Grove, I must have included the 360. 240. I'm not sure why the annual alderman amount was more than I said. It says 50 a meeting and then 1,000 per year for the mayor. And, oh, that's how I did it, the extra 1,000.
Mayor gets a little bit more.
No, it says mayor and board. So they get an extra 1,000 per year. Mayor and board. On top of their meeting
On
price.
top of me. So you're recommending keeping it the same,
I'm
providing information?
providing information, asking for direction for the budget.
Really attribute-
I did not take this position to gain personal gain. I didn't even know that this was a case when I got here until I was candidate. And I really personally don't care if it's not. That is my opinion. Yes, sir.
It's basically all of it.
I was the same way.
Yeah.
And I had no idea.
No. Yeah.
You know, I know that I'm one of the few young ones that is more financially secure enough to donate and volunteer time. That if we want younger blood, sometimes we have to be willing to compensate a little bit. And I don't see a whole lot of people jumping off the challenge really in it yet.
I'm older and not financially secure, and I'm still in the volunteer.
That's fine. But you've only got two of them right now. So I'm in a different season of life that you've been in, but in a different season. So I know we all are in different seasons. So I'm not trying to be greedy, and I'm not saying that this is making me go broke, but I have mouths to feed, and with my wife serving on other boards and stuff as well. And I just think it's something we should look at, because I know the majority of the board are retired or have pretty good jobs that are doing okay. But if we ever want anybody younger on the board, we need to compensate them a little bit more. Not make $1 million off of it, but, and that's why I suggested, is there any way we could do a utility stipend or something that doesn't hurt the city, but that's something you could give to someone to say, hey, come and donate your time and we'll help you with some utilities for the 2 years while you're on the board, or at least come and run against somebody. So,
I think, I think that
do we
way,
know?
the way
I'll
our
let the person
utility,
take my spot next time, argue with it.
the way our utility ordinances are written, they're very strict when it comes to, leniency. And I think that it would be a very hard sell to give anyone a stipend and not hear the other side of it.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly how it would work. It was an option. Trying to not cost the city money, but at least try to entice other people to come out and be part of this.
And there's good reason for the strictness behind our utility policy, but
You don't want to meddle.
it would be very difficult to justify or ask our residents for their continued payment and medications.
City Hall even pays the utility bill,
They
the
do.
light company. I mean, you know, it's not, it's like we all have to pay, I mean, every place that uses electricity, but you've seen it in the finance review,
It all comes from somewhere.
right?
So the general consensus to keep things as they are, what the option?
I will say the only department that does not pay their utilities is the Parks Department. And that was an agreement that predates not predates me at least. That's been a long-standing way of operating.
And why do they not?
I don't know.
Okay. Good enough.
I just want to clear that up.
Not in any
Yeah.
direction, general consensus, two things as they are, or with an option.
I'm fine with the way they are.
Me too. All right.
All right, moving on to revenue projections, the next slide deck here. Utility revenue projections, this is the same, I'm not gonna lie, this is the exact same PowerPoint. Just updated the numbers and everything, so this is how we typically show you all the increases to our utility rates. So we have our base rate, for water, though we have the 3% increase, but the 3% increase only applies to the base rate. So we talked about the waters, utility rates and things like that tonight. So that 26,985 to 27,794 brings the water fund $42,000. And then there's no change to the cost per 100 gallons. So that you can see here that on this chart that it has stayed at 55 cents per 100 gallons each year. So then we show what the revenue impact to that is on the last row there. Moving on to the wastewater charges. So wastewater is a little different in a way. I wish we could have got to it tonight in our workshop. But the wastewater fund, you can see there on the top first two rows, the base rate and the cost per 100 gallons has stayed the same, and it's been the same for quite a few years. I think probably from about when the Northwest plant was constructed. But those two rates stay the same, but what does change is our Sierra monthly rate. So last year it was $9.64. The year before that was $10.62. I believe the year before that it was maybe $9, and the year before that it was maybe $14, something like that. What we're proposing this year is to keep the Sierra rate exactly the same at $9.64 and keep our revenue flat. The problem with our Sierra rate is it's intended to cover the cost of debt services and CIP costs, which is fine, but you also have operation costs and you have personnel costs and you have other increases that impact the fund that don't have a source of revenue for. You don't have a source of revenue for them. This year, our debt, I think I mentioned this a few times to you all, and definitely the finance committee, but our debt capacity is lowering for 1 year in the wastewater fund. And then next year it skyrockets right back up to where it was. So we have 1 year of relief, if you will. And as opposed to reducing revenue for the wastewater fund, we felt it was best to keep it flat and use that amount to get some mandatory or really important assets to the wastewater fund purchase. So two of those things, one is three of them. One is the sewer jetter, a new sewer jetter. That's something that the department uses regularly to maintain our system infrastructure. And then also a new sewer camera. These are things that we really would struggle to purchase on any other year. Some larger cost items. And then we also were going to move forward with the SAM-GIS. So we've had the SAM-GIS for electric for a couple of years now. Our goal is to get that for the other two utilities. We get a lot of benefits from having that. One thing just happened in conversation we were talking about today when we were talking about Socket. You know, Socket said, well, we could pay you to hire an outside contractor to do all of your locates while we're installing fiber, and then you don't have to do them all. Well, we can't do that because we don't have any GIS mapping, so we can't hire anyone else to do our locates, which take 2 to 3 men a day to actually go out and do those locates. So it's a big operational need. Those are the three things that we're wanting to use the debt capacity difference in the wastewater fund for. Again, especially the jetter truck, I don't know, unless we change our rate structure, I'm not sure of another time when we would be able to make such an investment in our system, in our fund.
So just we're going to keep it level, our debt's less this year, but it's going to jump up next year. We'll really have to look at this rate.
It doesn't jump up, though, that's the thing. It doesn't jump up next year. It drops this year and then
Okay.
comes back up next year.
Scared
Yeah, I did say that wrong.
Okay.
I did say that wrong.
What were we?
No, it drops this year and then comes back up. So we had, I don't know if Joey McCliney structured this for us, but one of our outstanding revenue bonds for the wastewater department is structured. So we've only been paying interest and no principal. So it was structured in a way that whenever these others fell off, then we could start paying principal to balance it out. So it was structured that way in a way to help us. So we didn't have stacked debt and we weren't paying principal and interest, but it did leave an overlap here where there wasn't even.
So leaving it at this rate will really help us out this year with some major purchases.
Okay. For the electric fund, we have the 3% increase that's in our ordinance today. And that 3%, unlike water, the 3% increase applies to both the customer charge and the kilowatt charge. So you can see here, 2024, 2025, the proposed 25, 26 is just a 3% increase on top of each of those numbers. And then you have the revenue difference at the bottom. Operationally, the electric fund, we have a lot of upcoming needs, and we didn't get to it in our workshop tonight. Operationally, this department is like right where it should be when it comes to operational costs and revenue. The way we've been doing the rates has worked well for us, and it's the sweet spot, if you will, of we have the 3% increase, the cost increase that we're experiencing with operational needs and personnel needs is matching relatively well. And we have the capital reserves to be able to start churning and making progress on some reliability things. Again, we didn't have that conversation tonight, but in your notes, if you take a look at from the workshop, if you take a look at the electric funds CIP, you will see a very, very large CIP because we are trying very hard to make sure that we are spending those reserve dollars on things that are going to significantly make an impact on reliability. So there's things like let me see. There are, I know this is not part of the agenda. Okay, so there's just for food for thought for you guys to review this before our next meeting when we actually discuss this. But there's a lot of things in here that are really targeted for that improved reliability. One is the contracted circuit conversions. So you've seen circuit conversions on here quite a few times. This is now, you know, we've spent the money for the past few years. Every time we saw circuit conversions on there, that we took that money and we bought the materials that we needed. This now is a few extra materials plus contract labor. So we've made the determination that it's best fit for this to be contracted out, and that's what we plan to do in this upcoming budget. That's that. We also have the circuit interrupters for $60,000. That's another thing that's really going to improve our reliability within our system. Those are basically, it allows you, it puts, in my terms, not Troy's terms, it puts little switches out there. So if there's a power outage, instead of it impacting 400 people, we can turn the switch on and now it's only 200 people. Or if there was 3 switches, now that's only, you know, even less people. So it helps reduce the impact of outages on our residents. So that's a big one. Another item that he's been working on is finding substation protections. So making sure that there's covered apparatuses on the switches, breakers, and other electric things in the substation to prevent to prevent wildlife infiltration in there. We've been working hard to get some numbers for that so we can get them plugged in. This number might change ever so slightly. Plant rehabilitation, that's not something that's necessarily for reliability, but it is for the long-term longevity of our plant. It's much needed. Contracted citywide tree trimming. We did this a few years ago, and it made an impact. Like, if we maybe didn't see it directly, it made an impact on the amount of outages that we have in Odessa, and we want to do that again. We obviously continue to maintain and make sure that we're trimming trees that are, you know, major issues or anything like that. But this, having someone come in and clean up everything makes a huge difference on the amount of outages we have, the amount of times the power turns on and off because of those trees that are getting into the lines. And then the system analysis study. So this is another one. A lot of this has to do with our research to find a second feed. And in order for us to provide the information that Evergy needs, we need to have this engineered to an extent. So that's a portion of this study, and then they can also help us with things like the best location for those circuit interrupters. So that study will help us quite a bit with reliability and for our future infrastructure needs. So anyway, okay. Side note, that was a little side note for electric. So those are our rates for energy sales. And then moving on to general fund revenue. I won't necessarily go through all of these, but this just kind of shows the increase that we're budgeting for. So for real estate taxes, we budgeted a 1.5% increase due to current year actuals and projections. So real estate tax is a little bit difficult to gauge to an extent, just because of new construction and any past due or delinquent bills that come through throughout the entire year. We can't really gauge that super well. So we put a 1.5% on for this year. Personal property tax, we brought this up 9.9%, but that's because we were trying to right size it. Because this budget was so tight and so difficult to put together in reality, there's a lot of revenue sources. The county use tax receipts, that's another one where in the past we weren't super confident in the reason why the county use tax was increasing by so much. So we weren't budgeting to where it was actually coming in. But due to this budget being a little bit tighter, we're really right sizing a lot of the line items to bring them up to where we've seen them trending over the last 2+ years. So that's why you're seeing a big increase on personal property, county use tax, county sales tax, city sales tax. She has a 10.28 increase due to current year actuals and projections. I think this is also one too. We budget 2% each year, and we do that off of what was budgeted. Or it's been in the past, it's been 2% off of what was budgeted. So if your budget's kind of running behind each year, eventually you're going to have to right size that to actuals, and that's what we're doing. Motor fuel, same exact thing, very large increase, but actuals are coming in much higher over the last few years. A lot of it was a little bit of a conservation thing too, especially myself coming in to be finance director. You know, I kept a lot of our revenue lines lower, assuming worst case scenario, just to be conservative for our revenue. Just, you know, because I wasn't 100% confident and I didn't know exactly what, you know, how each line trended each year. So I always chose the more conservative option when it came to revenue. So that's starting to catch up with us a little bit, gave us a little bit more wiggle room to add to our revenue for this year, but it's still a very tight budget. This next page is some of our smaller items like merchant license, building permits, cigarette stamps, fines, and court costs. And most of those are shown as an increase over budget unless the actuals were different and we needed to right size those versus actuals. The one addition thing that you'll see on there is the special duty reimbursement for police. So this is due to that contract that we have with the church. So that revenue is accounted for. And our school resource officer revenue is also counted. So that's everything. Sorry, that was lengthy. Do you have any questions? Well, I still have a little bit of work to do. You have any questions? Like I said, I'll bring to you next week or next 2 weeks from now, next meeting, I'll bring you the remaining CIP, electric and wastewater. We'll have a little bit more park stuff as well, since Parks is reviewing the fees. So at our next meeting, we'll go over fees too. We'll do basically we'll do a little workshop, catch up on the things that we need to discuss, and then I'll present a budget in its entirety. If you have, during the meeting, I'll just present the budget in its entirety. If you have any concerns, that's when I would need to know. I would need to really know ASAP, but that, the March 10th during the meeting will be kind of the last call, and then we'll vote on everything on the 20th. Thank you.
Has Amy already left?
Yes, her last day was.
And Sean.
This is an issue that I was contacted by a resident with concern. And, she's trying to pay everybody's pictures. And some air quality. readings. So I think it would be, prudent to our residents to have Shauna and, check into some other ordinances or something.
So what is the problem?
So there's, and I don't know that, I am not an outside boiler, but from what I understand, an outside boiler, so what burns in there, I don't know. I did drive by, the smell is horrific.
So people have outside boilers to heat their home?
I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, and so, this person has dealt with it, has some health concerns, brought it to our attention. And so, I think by another ordinance locally, but stack height, raising the stack height of the exhaust, helps with that, smoke doesn't settle.
Is it wood burning or coal burning?
I have no idea what's burning.
Wood. And it smells bad, wood burning?
It smells like trash and plastic.
I kind of think that maybe that's something we can look into, is to maybe make a regulation that it needs to be wood and only wood. Just if it smells like chemicals and plastic, that makes me concerned that it's not just wood.
Yeah.
So we'd want to include
It
that.
doesn't smell like a fireplace smell when you drive by.
I guess it has to be a natural, natural product that's burning, not trash.
Yeah. It's already against city ordinance to burn trash, isn't it? Yeah. True. Correct. Unless they're burning trash in it, then that's technically not in compliance with ordinance, but. Mhm. Yeah. We have no applicable ordinances.
Right. And I think her concern is, it's continual. She has done some studies. She just wants to see if there's something we can do to improve the situation.
I think it's a good idea to research some city ordinances that have something on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would also caution us to make sure we're not restricting our community from actually heating their houses.
Yeah.
heating their families and stuff. By
Yeah.
trying to make, we need to be safe. If the smell is from trash, okay, but if it's functioning the way it should and it's the type of wood is burning or something, we need to be careful we're not trying to legislate our people into having to pay more for those things. So it could just be, I know there are some that burn it to rank, but it burns very, very well. Avatar,
is all new to me, so I don't know anything about it.
It is rank. Great fire. Draft in, sucks it in. No. Yeah. Yeah, I think she probably has a legit concern. I just wanna be careful what we're trying to legislate and restrict our citizens from doing. Things are gonna get tighter and tighter. And if we make it so illegal that they can't live without doing more.
Should be a problem here, Bernie.
Well, and then it'll depend on what type of weed.
And if, in the pictures, it looks like something is down here with all the smoke in here instead of, if you have a fireplace chimney, it's up and it's.
Oh, it's on the ground?
Yeah,
Well,
it's a little,
not-
it's a little shed that's
It's
outside.
it's
and then you
basically
pull them
like
up.
it's like an outdoor wood stove. Insurance companies like them better because it's outside of your house and it gets up into your.
But it's smoke.
The stacks only from the roof, the stacks only this far.
About 12 feet off the
I
ground.
mean, that's the same reason why fireplace chimneys are above the roof line, is so it gets out. Yeah.
What I researched, if you get a newer one, they actually have, I guess, EPA. Yeah, it's just that EPA, meets EPA regulations. Sure. Sure.
Works just like boiler, you heat up the liquid, pump it inside the house.
Research other cities' ordinances and come back and discuss.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we adjourn to closed session pursuant to RSMO 610-021. Legal action, causes of action, litigation, or confidential attorney-client communication.
Roll call.
Aldermember Starr, Plackty,
Yes.
Carey, Holson, Eller,
Yes.
Kerrigan,